All right, guys, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, as I am coming to you today with an update on Georgia. Now, right now, all eyes are on the stimulus for the American people, and the politicians' eyes are also on the stimulus. But the only reason that the politicians' eyes are on the stimulus is because really their eyes are on Georgia. I mean, let's be real here, guys. Would the politicians really care about getting relief to the American citizens if the Senate wasn't currently on the line in Georgia? Personally, I don't think so. And I think that applies to both parties. I really don't think they would give a damn about any of us if it wasn't for this Georgia runoff race. But it is what it is. That's just politics. So right now, it is deadlocked as we have the pro-choice pastor slash radical liberal Raphael Warnock going up against Kelly Loeffler, and then on the other side you have John Ossoff versus David Perdue. Now, the pro-choice pastor Raphael Warnock has come under fire recently, as there's been video footage that is strongly implying that he may be having some domestic issues in his life that could possibly affect the outcome of this election. Before we get in that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. As I stated, the pro-choice, which to a lot of conservative Americans like myself, basically also means anti-life slash radical liberal pastor Raphael Warnock. And I'm calling him radical liberal not because he's not a radical liberal. It's because Kelly Loeffler, every time she talks about him, she calls him a radical liberal. I just find it funny. But Tucker Carlson had read a segment with unseen footage that could spell disaster for Raphael Warnock. Let's take a look.
Raphael Warnock is a highly political preacher who's now running for Senate in the state of Georgia in one of the two races that will determine who controls the federal government. That race is 2 weeks from now, on January 5th. So it's a little late in the game to be getting the footage we're about to show you exclusively. This is footage of Raphael Warnock's wife. Fox News senior correspondent Rick Leventhal has the story for us tonight. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Tucker, this is never-before-seen video at Tucker Carlson Tonight exclusive. Georgia Democratic Senator candidate Raphael Warnock accused by his now ex-wife Ouleye of running over her foot. Here is the police body cam footage as the officer responds to the scene.
I want to file a report.
Ouleye Warnock told an Atlanta police officer her estranged husband ran over her foot during a heated argument back in March while he was trying to leave with their young children in the back seat.
All right, so you walked over.
So I'm like, move, and she won't move, and she's keeping the door open. So I'm like, Chloe, just stay in the car. And I move, and I close my car door, get in the car, and I start to move slightly, thinking she's here.
Clear.
Yeah, I'm thinking she's clear. And I barely move. And all of a sudden, she's screaming that I ran over her foot. I don't believe it. But I don't.
Warnock, the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, was not charged in the incident. Hospital first responders say his wife was able to wiggle her toes, and there was no redness, bruising, or broken bones. But Ouleye had more to say about Warnock's character.
This man's running for United States Senate, and all he cares about right now is his reputation. I work at the mayor's office, and this is a big problem. I've been trying to be very quiet about the way that he is for the sake of my kids and his reputation. I've tried to keep the way that he acts under wraps for a long time, and today he crossed the line. So that is what is going on here, and he's a great actor. He is phenomenal at putting on a really good show.
As you mentioned, Tucker, Warnock is locked in a tight runoff against Republican Kelly Loeffler, a race that 2 weeks from now could decide the balance of power in the U.S. Senate.
Well, that video is unbelievable. That woman is believable. I appreciate it. Rick Levin.
Yeah, I think Tucker Carlson is right about that. This isn't some attack ad from Kelly Loeffler. This isn't some planted footage. Like, this is real footage. And regardless of whether or not Raphael Warnock actually ran over her foot, I mean, maybe he did it on purpose, maybe he didn't, I don't know. His wife in this video, it looks like they're having some domestic issues. I mean, she strongly implied that at the very, very least, he is fake. He is an actor, that he is not who he says he is. And this is coming from his wife. So I think that this is kind of a big deal. I mean, is it really that big of a deal from the perspective of run over her foot? I mean, obviously nothing was broken. Like I said, you should not hit a woman under any circumstances. I am vehemently against that. But it could have been an accident. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think that the character testimony from his wife is the key thing. And if she's saying that he's fake, he's an actor, they may have some domestic issues, he may be a domestic abuser, that is not a good sign for him, because this is real footage. So it remains to be seen how this is going to affect the race. But what I do know is that they did do a debate a couple weeks ago between Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. And I want you guys to kind of check out this debate to get a perspective on the attacks that both candidates are levying against each other. Let's take a look.
I think a good sign of what someone will do in office is what they were doing before they ever went into office. And I've spent my whole career standing up for ordinary people, trying to, in fact, we had a job center in my church, contrary to what Senator Loeffler is trying to suggest. And I have stood up for ordinary workers time and time again. You know, during this pandemic, we call people essential workers. We ought to pay them an essential wage. And we ought to provide small business owners like her the assistance and the support that they need. Kelly Loeffler is out of touch. She's thinking about people who are like her. And I'm okay with the fact that she wants to make money. I just think you shouldn't use the people's seat to enrich yourself. You ought to use the people's seat to represent the people.
I'd like to respond.
Please do.
Look, these are more lies from radical liberal Raphael Warnock, someone that has invited Fidel Castro, a murderous dictator, into his own church, someone that has celebrated anti-American, anti-Semite Jeremiah Wright. You know, he has also said that police officers are gangsters and thugs and refused to apologize for it. He said that you can't serve God and the military. He has actually made sure that we know who he is in his own words. Those aren't my words. I'm working hard to serve Georgians. I've served thousands of Georgians, and I'm so proud to represent this state and help Georgians through this challenging time.
Well, Reverend, as I understand it, you were a young man in that church in New York. Would you like to respond to the suggestion that you invited him?
There's a lot at stake right now in the middle of this pandemic, and it's too bad that she's engaged in the politics of distraction and division. I never met him. I never invited him. He has nothing to do with me. If you want to know who informs me and my sense of how we engage as people in the economic system, you need look no further than Matthew 25. I'm a Matthew 25 Christian. That's what I am. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was sick and you visited me. Love your neighbor. And for me, that means you don't get rid of your neighbor's health care, particularly in the middle of a pandemic.
Greg.
May I respond?
Go ahead.
Look, I'm not going to be lectured by someone that uses the Bible to justify abortion, to attack our men and women in the military. You know, what's happening here is someone who will not own up to their own record of division. He has called on Americans to repent for their worship of whiteness. That's divisive. That's hurtful. He's celebrated Jeremiah Wright, anti-Semite. He's actually called Israel an apartheid state. That is wrong for America, and I'm going to continue to make sure Georgians understand that that is him in his own words.
Reverend, please respond to the abortion issue in particular.
Well, listen, I have a profound reverence for life and an abiding respect for choice. The question is, whose decision is it? And I happen to think that a patient's room is too small a place for a woman, her doctor, and the U.S. government. I think that's too many people in the room. But those who are concerned about life, and I certainly am, ought to be focused on the incredibly high rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality in our country when compared to other developed nations. That's something the government could work on. And I've been working on it my entire career.
All right, guys. So as you can see there, That was the debate they had a couple weeks ago. Now I would show you the debate against Ossoff and Perdue, but Perdue didn't show up to the debate because Ossoff said that he couldn't defend the indefensible. I don't really know what that means, but regardless, here we are. Here are the polls, right? So right now, Warnock has took a lead as of yesterday, according to 270 to win, the Insider Advantage poll, of 2 points over Kelly Loeffler. And it looks like in 1222, he was up about 7 points over her, 52 to 45. Now, it has not been looking good for her lately, but last week, you know, Loffler was solidly in the win. So it looks like it's flip-flopping back and forth here, which could be a concern for her if it starts to become a permanent trend for Warnock gaining more steam. So now with Ossoff and Perdue, this looks to be a lot more tighter to me, which this is virtually a tie. This is virtually a tie. Perdue right now is slightly over Ossoff by a point, in which Ossoff, you know, the last couple of days has had an advantage over him, and then basically going into last week, Perdue was winning, and then the week before that, Ossoff was winning. So, you know, it's one of those things right now where you could basically say both races are virtually a tie, which, you know, right now I would probably give Warnock a little bit of a lead over Kelly Loeffler, and I would say Ossoff and Perdue. Perdue is probably the favorite, but that's virtually a tie. So this is, again, as close to a toss-up as you can get. But all the Republicans need is one. The Democrats need two. The Republicans just need one. So keep that in mind. Now, moving forward, what is the important thing that I think that both of these candidates need to focus on moving forward? I'm going to keep it a whole buck with you guys. Is what the president said. Which of these candidates are going to get behind the president when it comes to stimulus? And who is going to get behind cleaning up the waste, fraud, and abuse that is currently in our spending bills? We cannot forget about that. Stimulus, helping the American people, and cleaning up the waste, fraud, and abuse in our stimulus. They need to get behind this. Remember, guys, Mitch McConnell came out and said, hey, one of the main reasons why we want to get the stimulus done, and particularly we wanted the stimulus checks, is because we heard from Georgians that they were hammering the Republican senators in Georgia for not supporting stimulus, right? That's what Mitch McConnell said. You can look it up, okay? So these candidates, right, regardless of how they feel about stimulus, probably need to get behind the president's words, and that is probably what's going to be the difference between victory and defeat, in my opinion. And let's take a look here at what they've been saying. So John Ossoff has came out straight up and just said, hey, Trump is right on the stimulus checks. He's supporting Trump on the stimulus checks. Now, David Perdue, he hasn't necessarily denounced Trump's demands for stimulus, $2,000 stimulus check, but he's released an ad that's currently promoting the current COVID-19 deal, and he's on the $600 stimulus checks train. Again, guys, I'm just telling you what the news is saying. And then you have Kelly Loeffler, who's, you know, a little bit more complicated of an answer. Let's take a look.
Certainly support redirecting any wasteful spending to be very targeted at families and businesses who have been impacted by this virus through no fault of their own.
But the vote comes up to increase the stimulus check from 600 to 2,000. You support it?
I'll certainly look at supporting it if it repurposes wasteful spending toward that. Yes.
All right. So basically she says, I will take a look at supporting $2,000 payments if they repurpose wasteful spending. And this is basically the middle of the line kind of talking point that most people in the party agree with. It's like, okay, let's cut out the pork and we can consider the $2,000 stimulus checks. I think a lot of Republicans are going to take this talking point and run with it because it basically allows them to ride the fence in terms of, okay, let's cut out the pork, which people are going to agree with, and then we can do the stimulus checks, which people are going to agree with. So, and you can see that Raphael Warnock has essentially come out in favor of the $2,000 stimulus checks. So at this point, guys, that's my recap of what's going on in Georgia. And it's important that we keep our eyes on it because President Trump really has thrown a wrench in everything in regards to the politics of Georgia with this demand for $2,000 stimulus checks. David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, if they want to win, they need to unequivocally back the president's demand. I'm just being real, because the president, because of his dissatisfaction with the Georgia legislature, with the Georgia government, those guys in Georgia have been on a ton of fire. What we're seeing right now is that people are voting in line with their party, which means that we don't have too many crossover voters. So victory is purely going to come down to who shows up to vote and who doesn't. And if people are disaffected and they don't want to show up to vote, which again could be a possibility considering how pissed off people are with what happened in Georgia, that could severely potentially impact Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. So right now, I'm just being real. They need to fall in line behind the president. Whatever the president say, they need to be behind it, because most Republicans in Georgia are pro-Trump. They're behind the president. And even Mitch McConnell said it himself, the stimulus checks are hurting the Republicans in Georgia. And that's a major motivating factor for why the Republicans agreed on the current stimulus package with the Democrats. Georgia. All the politicians only really care about the stimulus because of Georgia. And again, there's a lot on the line. We can see the politics playing out. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.